Hello, my friends. Ana Sarabia coming here today to talk a little bit about all the buzz about NAR settling, and not only NAR, but major real estate companies setting for this lawsuit that some lawyers brought about, claiming that our industry was somewhat rigged against the consumer on fixed commissions. And I just wanted, to talk a little bit about it to educate my clients and anybody out there that is watching this about how that really went about. The reality is that the commissions have never been fixed. Commissions have always been negotiable. The seller has always had the, choice of choosing how to go about selling their home. Some of them have chosen to sell them by owner. Some of them have engaged companies that are called limited services, which is a company that charges a fixed fee to put the property on MLS, and the seller is responsible for arranging showings, negotiating, etc. And some agents, discounted companies, charge a set fee, set percentage, or whatever. So what that means is that the seller has always had choices to how to go about marketing their property for sale. Now, the reality is that this lawsuit basically made the lawyers a lot of money in the tune of $86 million, and nothing really changed. Starting in July of this 2024, the new way to market properties basically stays the same, in the sense that the only thing that's going to happen is that the listing agent cannot advertise on MLS the commission that it's going to be paid to the buyer agent. So what does that really mean, I guess? Well, there's only the limitation that a listing agent cannot set up a commission on MLS. However, we can advertise it anywhere else: showing time, our own personal websites, social media, etc. Which in essence, also, well, for instance, me, that I've been doing real estate for 20 years, I've always used a buyer representation agreement. The buyer representation agreement clearly states what commission is expected, or, what commission I expect to get paid and where that is going to be coming from. The title reads specifically that X amount of commission, which I have the right to put and negotiate with my buyers, will first, we will try to, negotiate for the seller to pay that. But at the end of the day, if that does not come from the seller, the buyer is responsible for paying that commission. So that doesn't change. The buyer representation agreement, as a matter of fact, stays the same way that it's been, drafted and promulgated form forever. What really concerns me about this, in essence, basically has to do with opening a whole can of worms, in the sense that how the representation from an agent, meaning agency, is going to work going forward. Because in the event, for instance, that the seller says, well, I'm not paying for the buyer agent commission, that is going to be, in essence, a way where if a buyer comes in and has no representation, those buyers are going to have to sign a waiver where they state that they have no representation and that they've given up the right to representation because the listing agent represents the seller. And if you consider that there are 187 different activities that I, as a listing agent, I'm responsible for, and of course, I'm not going to mention all 187 of those activities that I am responsible for, but just to mention a few, from, negotiating as a buyer agent. Usually the buyer agent negotiates for repairs. So how is that going to look like? How am I supposed, as a listing agent that represents the interest of the seller, going to be able to negotiate those repairs with a buyer? What happens when an appraisal comes lower? Who's going to be negotiating, addressing that issue, and fighting for an appraisal? Obviously, if I represent the seller and the appraisal, it's to the benefit of the seller, how is the buyer going to address those things? Because the great majority of buyers do not know all the process, all the um, open avenues to them, from a lending perspective, as well as seller paying for buyer closing costs and things like that. So to me, nothing really is going to change, because the reality is that 87% of transactions today are agent assisted on the buyer's side. So how is a seller supposed to compete, by putting that house in front of a buyer agent that is not going to get a compensation? Because if you think about it, the great majority of buyers are not probably going to have the funds, to address that commission, or how the VA hasn't yet addressed the issue that a buyer can never pay for their buyer's commission. So this is going to, shuffle a lot of things. But at the end of the day, I do believe that the consumer is going to be the one that is going to be mostly affected by this, because no one is going to work for free. No agent is going to put a buyer in their car to go show properties, without expecting some sort of compensation. So we will be talking more about this, but on a first glance, this is what I am looking at as a listing agent primarily, um, uh, of how this is going to play out. So I know there's a lot of buzz, on the media and stuff, but the way that I really think about it is that things are going to basically stay as they are, because a seller that decides to put their house up for sale, once they determine what their net sheet is, I can guarantee you that most of the time they're still going to be paying for the buyer agent to come forward, because understandably, not putting it in such a way is just going to affect the possibility of selling this property with less hassle in an appropriate time frame. And so by that way, netting the seller the most amount of money. So let's talk more about this. What do you think? I mean, just send me a comment on what your thoughts are about this. Thank you for watching. It's me again. Thank you so much for stopping by. Just wanted to say real quick, if you want to check out some of our previous content, feel free to check out and click over here. And for our newest content, just do it on the opposite side. Thank you so much for stopping by. Again, an invitation for you to subscribe and like our content, and I hope to see you here very often.